We are going to get started. So as I said, the title of our panel discussion today is all about stopping fraud at the source. And as holiday shopping and peak fraud season approaches, regional banks and credit unions such as yourselves, and then your patrons, whether those are customers or members, are facing increased risks from brand impersonation scams, phishing, and other fraud schemes. So with us today, we've got cybersecurity and risk practitioners and experts from your financial institution peers, as well as some DefenseStorm and Allure Security experts on the line as well. And that'll provide for a dynamic discussion about, again, staying ahead of fraudsters' latest tactics this holiday season. I'm going to get started by introducing our illustrious panel members here. First of all, we have Jim Burr. He is Vice President of Risk Management at Honor Credit Union. Jim has over 20 years of experience in risk management for financial institutions, working in a variety of roles, both as a subject matter expert and as a leader. He resides in Northwest Indiana, where he spends his spare time managing a small hobby farm with his wife of 26 years. His motto of "risk is fun" often leads to deeper discussions about the philosophy of risk management and the importance of controls in both professional and personal settings. Jim, thanks for being here. Really do appreciate it.
And thank you so much for having me.
Next on the line, we have Kevin Quinn. He is Chief Information Officer at NuMark Credit Union, where he's been for 13 years, advancing digital cybersecurity, networking strategies, among other duties. He's a Purdue University graduate, degree in computer and information technology. Kevin brings extensive expertise, right, in building and protecting digital infrastructures. Outside of work, he's a father of two. He told me that his Halloween costume tomorrow will be Pokemon themed. Not only is he a father of two, he's also a passionate Grateful Dead fan. He refers to himself as a deadhead. Thank you, Kevin, for being here, and we all look forward to pictures of you and your family's Pokemon costumes.
Absolutely.
We have my colleague next on the docket is Mark Trinidad. He is Field CTO at Allure Security. Mark is a seasoned cybersecurity expert with more than 20 years experience. As Field CTO, Mark applies his strong product management background to understand and articulate technical requirements of prospects and customers to engineer solutions that deliver on desired security, compliance, and risk management outcomes. Mark also evangelizes online brand protection and other cybersecurity best practices as a public speaker. Mark has held product management, marketing, and sales engineering roles at companies including Varinus, Blue Voyant, McAfee, and Trustwave. Mark, of course, thanks so much for being here with us.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Great. And then finally, of course not least, we have Paige Berry. She is VP of Strategic Partnerships with DefenseStorm. I am certain many of you on the line are very familiar with Paige. Paige joined DefenseStorm in 2019 with more than 20 years of consistent success serving the technology needs of financial institutions. Prior to joining DefenseStorm, she held executive positions at S1 Corporation and Fiserv. She was named by Cyber Magazine as one of the top 10 female leaders in cybersecurity. And Paige consistently demonstrates a powerful commitment to the clients she serves and the employees she leads. And now we are going to jump into the meat of this conversation. So panelists, are we ready?
We are ready.
Very good. So first of all, before we get into the risk associated specifically with holiday fraud, I want you to share some of what you are seeing as it relates to fraud schemes, whether that's account takeover or brand impersonation, kind of in general. And we're actually going to start with Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So, yeah, we still see attempts at brand impersonation, although we've definitely, with your help, seen a curtailment of a lot of that activity that was taking place. So, as always, the threat actors shift tactics and whatnot. So we're definitely seeing more I guess what I would say is riskier for them type of fraud scams involving impersonation, where they're impersonating either on telephone calls, or they're impersonating members and contacting us and trying to set up travel notices, increasing card limits, and so on and so forth, because a lot of the tools we put in place have been effective at catching them. So now they're trying to, basically go after impersonating our members or impersonating us to our members. There's often, I don't want to say always, but often there is an element of smishing that's involved with this. And so that has not, what we've seen is a drop off in that kind of activity, but there still is elements of that. So, we continue to kind of monitor that. And again, with your help, kind of work to get that stuff taken down, but still out there, always changing.
It does seem to change all the time. One that I think I'd be remiss not to mention just because it just happened to us. But we had a recent case of ATM jackpotting. So this is just a notification to make sure if you've got some old ATMs out there, you get them rekeyed. Don't keep that universal key out there because that was a bad one. But along the lines of, what Jim was saying, we're seeing a ton of impersonation fraud one way or the other. Our relationship with Allure actually began, I think, close to the beginning of the year, when we got a notification from one of the information sharing communities, and it was another financial institution letting us know that they had been the victim of a targeted campaign, and they had taken the URL, got to the point where they could list all the directories that were under it, and they went ahead and, reached out to all the financial institutions that they saw the name of. And one of them happened to be ours. And it kind of put us in a unique position where we knew we were going to be targeted, but nothing had happened yet. So that is kind of what led us to Allure, because we had always kind of taken a very reactive strategy where the fraud had already begun. The campaign was already out. And then we were, taking the steps to shut it down. But this, gave us a chance to shut it down early on, and that really helped. And like more of what Jim said, they've shifted a lot of phone calls now, trying to get them to relay pins and relay account numbers over the phone. We know it is a good feeling to know we have control over their favorite method. But now we're trying to really play that whack-a-mole game to shut them down where they shift.
Very good, Kevin. So thanks for that, Kevin. Mark, you probably know this, but you're referring to some of these phishing nests that we've been finding out there, where it's there'll be one domain, and then there'll be a directory of numerous financial institutions impersonated underneath there. And I know that sometimes when we find those phishing kits and those domains, it's like if you sit there on the site and then you refresh it, you'll see as additional brands are added. So that's really finding those kits right when they're under construction.
Oh, yeah.
So, Mark, anything else to say about, I don't know, phishing kits or anything else that people are seeing in all the conversations you're having?
I think what Jim and Kevin said, what they're happening at their credit unions is spot on what we're seeing across sort of the industry. I think there's always some elements of smishing there, right? I don't think that's going to stop. While it has sort of slowed down, is what Jim said, it might just pick back up at the holiday time. So we're going to talk more specifically about that. What Sam mentioned around those phishing nets. What's interesting is sometimes what I'll notice in some areas is that if we catch a phishing net, the subdirectory capitalization matters. So if say a FNB is an example, like First National Bank, there's tons of First National Banks, but if I come across domain.icu/capital FNB, and I get that, but if I use capital F and then N and then B, those are two different phishing sites, right? So in order for you to find those things, right, you really have to examine what's going on there, right? So those are some other evasion techniques that we're seeing there that the attackers can do. So they can go after your brand multiple different ways with how they're actually using capitalization as subdirectory. What other things that we see are social media. I don't think Jim or Kevin may have experienced some social media things, but it is happening in smaller doses out there. Typical things that we'll see are, fake profiles being created with the same name and same, logo, same look and feel as your legitimate credit union or regional bank Facebook page. Sometimes they'll call themselves a real estate company. Again, evasion techniques not to be in the same category. We are seeing changes where they'll have your logo, your header image and things like that, but change the profile name to winner selected. And then try to, get people to say, hey, there's a contest here. And maybe comment in some of your Facebook posts that way to get them to come to those sites. So all these different things that we're seeing, I don't think it's stopping. I think the threat actors are trying to be creative and they're really testing to see what works.
Very good. Thank you for that, Mark. So Mark, we're actually starting with you on this one, this next question, Mark. So now as we, start to think about, hey, it's fraud season, right? Holiday season, more holiday shopping, etc. Tend to see some increased attempts at fraud, potentially brand impersonation during the holidays. So I guess, Mark, the question to you is, maybe holiday season, peak fraud season specific, what are you hearing from the credit unions and regional banks that you're talking to each day, and maybe what they're doing to, let members know about being careful and that sort of thing too?
Yeah, what I'm hearing from the folks that I talk to, I don't think it's necessarily holiday sometimes. I think they're always out there to help re-educate their customers and their members, right? But I think clear communication is what they're saying is needed, and that's on both sides, right? Internally as well as externally, right? You need to have the process and everything set up internally. What's happening, what could happen, right? Jim can probably talk about all the different risks associated with fraud here. But when you look at these things, right, everybody has to be on alert, right? As you mentioned, Sam, this is a business problem. It's just not the fraud department's problem. It's not the IT department's problem. It's not the security or risk department's problem. Everybody needs to be aware of this because when a member or a customer reports an issue, the team in place needs to know, okay, who do I contact? What's the process? What information do I need to collect? How do we communicate this information even more? And then on the external side of things, a lot of the folks that I talk to, again, are talking about re-education members, but then they go, okay, we have a banner on our website. Sometimes that doesn't work as well, right? And I do talk to a lot of folks that they go, hey, we have elderly membership. They don't go on the website. They don't do this, right? They do like to come into a physical branch location. So I think a lot of them have thought about, okay, what can we do when they come in? What kind of signage can we have when they come in? What kind of talk track can we have? Beyond just the, hey, I'm here to help you. What can we have at the teller desk and things like that? I think that's what I've been hearing from the folks I'm talking to.
Very good. So multi-channel sort of communication, right? The digital versus branch versus whatever else might be available to you. So over to you, Jim. Again, how does Honor Credit Union prepare for kind of the holiday season and any input on the members' education item there as well?
Appreciate that, Sam, and I'm going to echo what Mark was talking about. Communication is vital, right? And so we do focus on kind of both member facing and internal. So we have a newsletter that we put on our internal website that is dedicated to fraud and fraud prevention, and that gets updated every month, more frequently if we have any kind of material event going on. And so we make that resource available to all of our team members. We also have, for our member facing, we put alerts on our web and our mobile, and we talk to our frontline staff about the kind of questions and red flags and things that they should be looking for, and talking with the members about, particularly as it relates to the holidays. One of the other things that we've done to kind of help our team with is for our internal fraud email box. We set up a auto reply like you would use for out of office, right? But what we did was we set that up with links to fraud procedures in case of different types of events. So when a team member is emailing us to say, hey, this is going on, they're getting an email back telling them, hey, for this type of fraud, please do this, and so on and so forth. And they're getting that with each, so we can keep that refreshed as circumstances change and whatnot. But awareness is key. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do is just raise awareness.
Very good. Thanks, Jim. Love the, hey, here's what you can do, given action items to the consumers. Kevin, what are your thoughts? How does NuMark kind of get ready for holiday season? And then, also what might you be doing in terms of member education as well?
Yeah, I think it's a layered approach. I think like every organization, we're approaching our threat defense in layers. Our security comes in layers, and one of the barriers we recently ran into is we've grown a lot in size. So recently, actually established an internal fraud department and staffed it up. What we kind of came away with after not too long were these kind of fraud silos where each department or business unit knew about their specific task in detecting fraud, but there wasn't a good synergy of these departments coming together and kind of recognizing a pattern that might affect the way that something happens that goes outside of their realm, but they're because they're just answering to their specific task. So we really put on like a cross-departmental training team and trying to get more cohesion between the departments when it comes to fraud, because I think the only way that you really can effectively combat it is good education for all of the staff and all of the staff working together on it. And then, the member education is tricky. You can put a lot out there, but it's at that point, it's kind of on the member to go out and read it or follow the rules or, check out that banner or read that letter. So we kind of, as effectively as we can, try to control it with the resources that we give them. We're trying to make sure that any financial transactions can be set up for real-time alerts. And we're trying to really push members to, getting real-time alerts on transactions so they can start that dispute process as quickly as possible. And then another one that we kind of started with that, that last campaign I referred to is trying to really make our fraud submission from the membership, trying to enhance it so that it's easier. It's right in front of them. It's something that it's not a pain to do it, because if you don't, they won't. So if they get a SMS message, they can easily just report it to us. If they get a phone call, they can easily report it to us. Just have it kind of available, because the more we know, the better off the entire membership is. That one little notification of a scam message going out can help us kind of get together and formulate a response to what might be an active campaign.
So thank you, Kevin. I love the idea of kind of a low friction fraud submission process, right? Because you want to get intel from wherever you can and making that as easy as possible. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And then, so Kevin, we're starting with you again here, and it's a good question to follow up the last one.
Yeah.
So while member education is absolutely a part of any anti-fraud strategy, and you were talking yourself about a layered approach, but why isn't it enough? And sort of what else needs to happen? How do you all look at that?
You build up those tool sets internally to kind of enhance your response, to make it to make the result of a bad decision on the member or the employee have as minimal amount of harm as possible. And for us, that's layering our fraud prevention tools. We had no system for a while, and then we had one system for the longest time, and that was our fraud tool that prevented all fraud, but it just didn't do that. So, we find ourselves layering on tools, finding where some work better than others. And then, what really helps is when those tools can talk to each other. And it kind of speaks to this relationship and why I'm excited about it. But, the Allure system being able to communicate to DefenseStorm is a huge boost for, what you're seeing in your SIM and your SOC as a service tool. So it's really, we've worked on layering our approach to it, because, you can't control what every member is going to do, and you can't, force them to read your little pamphlet that gives all this great information. So we're trying to attack it from whatever angle we have available to us.
That's awesome. So yeah, and I mean, it's like security, it's like a partnership in ways between the institution and the, customers or members, but like it's getting harder and harder to actually recognize a fake, right? So Mark, over to you. What are your thoughts on this item?
Yeah, I think what Kevin mentioned, I think is really smart. Like you have to be more frictionless. I think, you try to educate and educate and educate. And the only reason why someone like my mom does it is because I told her 17 million times, right? Don't answer the phone. Don't click on anything. If you have a question, call me. And that has gone down over time where she has to call me, right? She understands it. But it's those things. But when I talk to folks out there, like we always mention, like when they say, hey, what does Allure Security do? We're really trying to help your members stop themselves from clicking on something dumb, right? So, having that as part of your strategy. Kevin talked about, right, hey, we had one sort of fraud thing for a long time, and we thought it could do everything, but all the different threats change and the way fraud happens change. So you always have to reevaluate and come back to make sure that you're also progressing your tools as well as your processes for your fraud program.
Very good. Thank you for that. Mark, scammers are innovators, right? If they start getting caught, they try something else. And so, it's that cat and mouse game of sorts. Jim, over to you. Your thoughts. Why isn't member education enough? What else needs to happen? That sort of thing.
Well, I mean, the simple answer is member education is not enough because they're the weakest control point. And they don't necessarily recognize the importance of their role, even though it's their money, right? And I think that, if you think about how the industry has changed, particularly over the last 20 years, that the space, the online banking space, if you will, has been commoditized to such a point where our members and our banking customers don't necessarily feel as connected to the security of their accounts as they probably should. And maybe they did when online banking first came out and people had that healthy level of distrust. At some point over the years, people have learned to trust clicking on links and text messages. For the life of me, I don't know where that inflection point came. I've been pondering it a lot, right? But it's out there and it's real. The layered approach is so important because if you sit there and you look at like member education is an important preventative control. However, it's ineffective. Like if you were to evaluate just how effective it is, the ones who don't get it may be the ones who bring you the bigger losses, right? Like there's no really good way. If you've got a bunch of folks with $200 in their account and they know not to click on text messages, hey, that's great. But if Granny, who's sitting on her pension and got a lot of cash in there, if she doesn't know, then all your fraud prevention methods, they go right out the window. Your loss goes right out the window. So I think the layered approach makes a lot of sense where you put in place as many preventative controls as you can. Allure is a preventative control. And then on top of that, you have your fraud monitoring, you have your member education, you have like all these other different elements. And some are going to be preventative, some are going to be detective, some are going to be corrective, right? And you build that approach. Will it eliminate it from happening? No. but it will bring it to a level where you can manage it and you can actually feel comfortable that, you know, your efforts are working to help protect your members or protect your customers' money. So
I think that was an example of risk is fun, Jim.
see, that's what I'm saying. It's all about the philosophy, right? Yeah, yeah.
Very, very good. Jim, we're starting with you again on this next one. So, you know, Black Friday, 4 weeks away. Historically, has Honor Credit Union seen a market increase of sort of reports of fraudulent transactions, you know, after Thanksgiving weekend? And then, you know, what are you doing about that? I was recently looking at some data, and it's like, perhaps obviously phishing scams, et cetera, always go up starting around this time, going through December, and then they continue to kind of go through January and February, and then maybe there's a little bit of a lull. It typically doesn't go beneath what it was the year before or anything, because the problem continues to grow. But anyway, are you seeing that increase? What do you all do about it? And then, you know, any tips for our audience here?
Yeah, we're anticipating it. We have seen it historically, and we are anticipating it. You know, I think Mark had mentioned that, you know, maybe the industry is seeing a bit of a drop off in smishing attempts. I can guarantee you Black Friday is like, should be called Smish Friday, because everybody's distracted. They're out shopping, they're with their family, they got, you know, they're doing things, and all of a sudden they get this alert on their phone and they're like, hey, wait a minute, that's not me. I need this money for, you know, whatever. And next thing you know, they're on the phone with someone who they think is us, or they're on a website that they think is ours, and it's a problem, right? And so, again, what we'll do is we'll put out member alerts both on mobile and on our website, right? We'll have signage in the member centers. We'll have people talking about it, particularly with folks who may be more at risk, folks who aren't as tech savvy, folks who are a little more vulnerable. By the way, it's not just the elderly, the young also, right? They tend to fall for this at a rate where you're like, oh my God, how do you not know that, right? But so making sure that that education piece is out there. But again, as we said, the member education piece is only so effective. So you also have to make sure that you've got a good threat monitoring routine in place, so that if there is a compromise, if there is a smishing site that's spun up and that's out there, or something that's actively targeting the members, that you have a way of tracking activity and preventing it, or restricting it as much as you can, so that you can triage it afterwards.
Very good. I'm actually going to throw a wrench into things. I'm going to go to Kevin next on this one, if that's all right. So Kevin, do you all, again, same thing. Do you see an increase? Are you anticipating it? As Jim said, do you have any tips and tricks, maybe that you've seen be successful in the work you do as we approach this season, for everybody on the phone here?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, every holiday has a spike, you know, even President's Day, but the spike around, you know, the holidays of, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas is just off the charts. And we see it through every channel. You know, we are trying to take it a little more proactively this year, because we're seeing the reactive approach is just costing us money. So we are trying to take it a little more proactively, and drive members to, you know, more enhanced cybersecurity add-ons for everything that they have. You know, we really want to push for multi-factor authentication across the board, encourage them to use strong multi-factor authentication, to, you know, use strong passwords, use secure payments, you know, use the contactless payment when you can, avoid swiping, you know, at any cost, and really just be vigilant. I mean, I think a big part of this is people have other things on their mind during the holiday season. They're not as vigilant. They're not going to be checking their accounts as often. They're not going to be watching transactions. So you start pushing towards, hey, you need debit card alerts. You can get, you know, a little push alert every time a transaction goes through, and kind of let it run in the background. But if something stands out, like, I didn't just spend $60 at Walmart, start that process right away. Because it is a time where there's, you know, a kind of a general malaise and distraction. So people take advantage of it in many different ways, you know, and we see it through social engineering attacks. We see it through an increase in phishing campaigns. We see it all across the board. It's just, the member education we keep putting out there, but we have to make sure those security controls are there too, to help them, that we have, good, solid, industry leading MFA type technology. Sending a code to an email, frankly, I think everybody knows is not the best way to handle. We need to actually look for, phishing lists, MFA, where we can, and opportunities to put controls like that in place, just so that we can help our members and help ourselves at the end of the day, because those fraud losses can be astronomical around this time of the year. And, we're finding that fraud budget just keeps going up every year. So just trying to do our best to allocate that to controls, rather than, paying back some of these losses. So that's been our big approach, is just campaigns around encouraging members to enhance security around their own products and services.
So that's great, Kevin. And then one thing that I want to ask you really quick, you said to tell them to avoid swiping at wherever possible. And what you mean is don't swipe your payment card, tap it. Do I have you correct there? Okay. Because
that's correct.
Tapping is more secure, less likely to be
yeah,
skimmed.
and everything has its own sources of fraud, but it's not fraud less.
Right.
But you're taking the least amount of risk. That swipe is the highest risk way to do it. Let's pick the lower risk with, we're not necessarily eliminating, but we're trying to, because they're going to go for the low hanging fruit every time, that they can. So let's try to stay out of those pitfalls.
And I just like it because none of the financial institutions that I work with have ever told me that. Like, I think that would I just really like that one quite a bit, that little tip. Okay, Mark, so I kind of want to get a little bit more specific on this question to you, because Kevin was talking about, hey, text messages that say, was this you that spent $60 at Walmart? Just the other day was, well, it's not just the other day. We know this is true, but attackers are using that scheme to phish people. So I guess my question for you is, can you, how are others looking at that? Like, what's the, and it goes back to what Jim said, where it's like, marketing knows where people will engage, scammers know where people will engage. So like, what's the answer there, Mark? I'm sure there's no silver bullet, but how do you look at that?
I don't think there's a silver bullet. What Jim made a good point is it's the young kids too, right? Because they're so used to clicking on stuff, right? So it's just like it's second nature. I'm gonna click on it, right? That's what they do. They're always on their phones, and I think I do see some folks do definitely kick off holiday re-education programs and campaigns, right? So it's like working with Jim and Kevin and their marketing team to say, hey, we got to do this now, right? Some of them piggyback on October being cybersecurity month, right? To get their members know that, hey, there's an awareness month that we have there, and we're going into holiday season. You guys should be well aware. So they try to use that to their advantage. Anything that they can sort of make it gimmicky as much as they can to get that point across. But there's, like you said, there's no silver bullet. If people see something, they have to just think to themselves again, is this mine? And I should not click on this link. I should go on my mobile app and see if something changed on there, right? So you have to sort of change that mindset and keep on re-educating them to say, okay, I'm not going to click on this link. I'm going to open up my mobile banking app and see if there's a charge there. If there's not, maybe I report it, right? What Kevin said, frictionless reporting. Hey, I want to make sure none of my friends, none of my family members, none of the members, we're all, we're all into this. We all are part of this credit union together. We're all members. I want to make sure they don't get scammed, because that's going to affect the bottom line.
And again, finding those sites before the distribution even happens is,
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's going to reduce a good amount of your risk there as well. All right, we are coming upon our last question here. We're going to start with Kevin. So as I said at the top of the hour, a majority of consumers will blame a brand for a spoof website, even though the brand it's not like the brand has done something wrong. They're not exactly at fault. But the question for you, Kevin, is kind of take us back a little bit and think about how were you originally handling online scams that were impersonating your brand? maybe what was an aha moment where you realized that like you needed to do more, you needed some help, you maybe needed to go externally. And then, what advice might you give others on kind of knowing when it's time to invest in a proactive solution and building a business case for that?
Yeah, I think first, about the blame game. They'll never stop blaming you. That attribution is always so funny. It's, they blame either the institution or the last place they swiped their card, even though that card, the number could have been compromised for months. So they're always going to try to find somebody to blame. So just to, I guess, have it happen less would be, your only solution there, which, yeah, for us, we took kind of the reactive approach for years on it. Once we saw an active campaign or were alerted to it, then we would start the process to try to take down the sites, which that was horrible to try to do on our own. Some registrars are okay with it. Some of them are absolutely brutal and don't want to talk directly to anybody. You have to go through a web form and hope you get a response back. The number you call, I don't even know where it goes. So it was a brutal process trying to take those down. And the other part to that is, at that point, you're waiting weeks at this point when you're trying to take it down yourself. Best case scenario, a few days, but that's a really, really reactive registrar. Most of this is weeks or months. And now you're waiting weeks or months as there is an active campaign underway, and they're just blasting everybody with your area code and prefix, trying to, send this out across the board. They might not even have phone numbers of your members, but they know, hey, they're 815744. They send it out to everyone in that prefix. It goes all over the place. You have non-members calling that are like, wonder what's going on with this place. Like, why am I getting an alert for this? So you've lost trust in people that you've never even spoken with. So, and at that point too, you're losing money. Those links are going out, those members are getting the text, and they are communicating back, their usernames and passwords. They're clicking the link, they're putting the information in there. They're getting the MFA, they're putting it in there. That telegraph message that's going all over the world to the, fraudsters is getting people in there, and money is coming out of accounts at that point. So we did have that kind of unique opportunity where we were alerted to the campaign before it happened, and we knew we needed to take a proactive approach. We just didn't know how effective it was going to be, and effective in the future as well. For a while, the financial institution that alerted us to this told us that it went on for a long time, and they found out that kind of down the line, and it went on for a while against them. And since we were more I can only assume, since we were more proactive about it, we did get some notifications here and there as they kind of tried to change the domain. But as we were getting those shut down very, very quickly, it just poof was gone. It was, we stopped kind of getting, not completely out there, but it was very evident that there was an active campaign and that something was happening. But that kind of wave really doled out after a short amount of time, once we were just taking those sites down left and right. And I think they shifted their focus. They didn't want to deal with it anymore. They didn't want to deal with, us taking down, or Allure, more correctly, taking down all of these sites. So, it's really been beneficial for us kind of going forward to attack it before it happens. I think the reactive approach is, you're going to lose money in that, whether you like it or not. You kind of have to get to it before those messages go out, because once those messages go out, the cat's out of the bag and people are already submitting that information. So that was a huge benefit for us. And, it is one channel, and, many attacks have been stopped now because of, our control over that channel.
Thanks for that, Kevin. It sounds like, it's as if you're sort of ruining the return on investment for the scammers, because you get them taken
Yeah.
down so quickly, they're less productive for them. They say, hey, let's move on to somebody else.
Yeah, let's find somebody that's not doing this, that's not
Right.
actively shutting us down.
Yeah. Okay. So we have about 5 minutes left. So we're going to go to Jim next, but I just want to say, Mark, I might give Paige an opportunity to say something at the end, unless you're just like chomping at the bit to say something on this question. But with that said, Jim, so same sort of thing. What happened where you said, you know what, we need to go externally for this? What was the aha moment there? And kind of how did you maybe build the business case? What tips do you have for people on the line?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what Kevin was describing there, right? We were doing it internally when the campaign first started. I mean, I picked up the phone and was calling people that I had no business calling, like, hey, you get this site taken down. Like, who are you? It doesn't matter, right? Like, go look, it doesn't belong there. That had very limited success. So when we were able to kind of find a partner in Allure, that was very, very helpful for us, because again, I wanted penalty. I wanted preventative controls, not reactive controls, not corrective controls. I wanted preventative controls, because that was what was missing from my toolbox. So I'll be pithy because I don't want to overrun anything Paige may want to add here, but I guess what I would say is, in this old adage, right? The best time to buy insurance is when you can, not when you have to, right? So the best time to get those preventative controls in place are when you can, not when you have to, because if you're in the middle of a campaign, it's a lot harder to kind of react. It doesn't mean, we got Allure, got spun up, saw a decrease in activity, didn't stop. Bad guys were still trying to get at it because, boy, they really liked what they saw, but it really put a huge dent in it. And now we're not really seeing as much anywhere near that kind of activity. So do it when you can, not when you have to.
Yeah, love that. Thank you, Jim. So Paige, want to give you a second to, weigh in on any of these questions, weigh in on the partnership, kind of floor is yours, is what I'll say.
Well, I'm actually going to defer to Mark really quick, because we did have one question submitted, and it's a good one. It's probably is going to require more time than we have. But Abby Adams asked about using mobile wallets and what kind of hacking have you seen across all of the Allure clients related to things like Apple Pay?
I probably don't have much time to talk about that too much, but we can definitely connect with Abby offline.
Excellent, thanks. In closing, I just want to say how very, very excited that DefenseStorm is about this new partnership. And thank you very, very much to Jim, who is a relatively new DefenseStorm client, and Kevin, who has been with DefenseStorm a very, very long time. We polled our client advisory board about 6 months ago about digital brand protection, what our clients' needs were, whether they were using something, whether they had a need, and would they like to see DefenseStorm expand our partnerships in this area. It was kind of a resounding yes, please, can you bring us a partner to help us with this? And what we like about Allure, first of all, to know that they already had customers that were existing DefenseStorm customers was huge. We met Jim as a prospective customer while we were evaluating Allure Security to join the DefenseStorm family. And he was willing to be a reference for them straight away. DefenseStorm is absolutely committed to the solutions and the services that we bring to all of our financial institution clients. And cultural fit for us is critical. And so we're confident that adding Allure Security to our community of trust is going to bring great value and increase the layered security and help all of our clients achieve increases in the maturity of their cyber risk management programs. So thank you to everyone so very, very much for your time this afternoon. We'll be excited to share the recording once it is available. And if you have additional interest in this, please reach out to your customer success manager here at DefenseStorm. You're also welcome to reach out to me directly. Thanks, everyone.
Jim, Kevin, Mark, thanks so much for your time. Thanks, Paige. Yeah, we're really excited about the partnership as well. And we look forward to talking to all of you, hopefully, in the future. So thanks, everybody. Happy Halloween.
Happy
Have a good
Thank you very
Halloween.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.